But as far as like where it came from, I mean, that was just me making jokes, and talking about stuff I grew up around. Like when I write fiction, I won't die without writing fiction. So
Oh,
I
right
mean,
on.
but I know what my fiction story is, and I just been working on the way I outline it and my writing style because it's a different kind of writing, but I want to do it. That's what originally got me into writing. But yeah, my first stuff would probably be something to do with like supernatural crackheads, man.
Supernatural crack. I think I might have seen a few of those. But it was funny because I think you had just been. We had done our first show together a couple years ago when I first met you, and I think the crackhead thing came like almost right after that. Because I was looking at all your material and so forth and doing a deep dive. Then all of a sudden I saw like these crackhead jokes. I'm like, where did that come from? Like, I know he drank and he partied, but I'm sure he didn't do crack. So.
No, it's stuff So you figure out how you cope with your environment and what you'll take from it and lessons and laughing and all that good stuff. And the crackhead thing, that's I grew up. We had a babysitter that was a crackhead, man, and I had seen like people, using drugs and shooting up. You see these things, and then you just, and then it's just part of the life. It's just in the background for everybody. Like everybody, I'm just probably one of the only people that has made these jokes and had all this stuff said on social media.
Yeah, right.
That's pretty much it, though.
Right on. Before we start, my friend, congratulations to you. Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks, man.
You're about ready to be a father.
Well, whether I'm ready or not doesn't matter. He's coming.
It's exciting, man.
He's coming no matter what I do. Yeah, so I'm having a son.
Congratulations, pal. It's exciting. And this is baby number 1 for you.
Yeah, I'm over the moon, man. Because I'm just, I get to. I think about like all the interactions and experiences that led to my parents having me, and and just how, I mean, there's a lot of dysfunction, I think, in my family growing up, and I know like everyone says that, but like objectively, measurably, like legal record, you can look it up.
Sure.
A lot of dysfunction, and I get to stop it. Period. My One of the sayings that's really stuck in my head lately is that the future is secure when men plant trees whose shade they won't get to sit in. And nothing has made me think about what's going to happen beyond me like Don when I was a kid. So I get to think. I get to go, wow, I get to make sure that my last name and everything associated with I guess the lineage of my DNA gets to go and start a very different way of living and interacting with the world. And if I can set his mind up to where his grandchildren are superstars, and that's a hard way for, I think, most people to think. Maybe even people with kids. I think there's a distinct difference, talking to people about the future who have children who are like remotely responsible. They understand that what they do. I think I was saying to Anna last night, I was like, 20 years are gonna go by in a blink, and she's like, what? Like it's gonna go, like we'll be 57 one day, and he'll be 20 years old, and that's means that we have to use that time to build with it. And it doesn't seem like a long, well, it sounds like a long time until I thought I was like, I've been with Anna 10 years. 10 years, I don't remember like that. It's just gone right on by. And then prior to that, 10 years before it was up, I was a senior in high school. So I think my relationship with Tom just continues to get modified, and I just don't see, I've been talking to these guys. You connect with all types of people on social media.
Sure.
Been talking to these guys who deal with dividend paying like stocks and things like that, and one of the guys put up a post, and it was like, if you had invested it was some dividend paying company. If you had put 10,000 in there, you'd have about 58,000 right now without the dividends reinvested. And if they had been reinvested, you'd be like 90,000. And this was over a 10-year period. And I'm just like, man, like that is a blink. That's not that long at all, you know. And you don't have many of those. If you're lucky, you're going to get 10 periods, 10 decades on this planet. But most of us are going to get between 6 to 8, ideally.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. If you get 7's the average, you're going to get so 6 to 8 is what most of us are going to get. Maybe some of us will see 9, but when you think about that, you don't have a lot of time, and so you have to do good things with it. That's why I said 20 years is going to be like that, and we're going to be like, where'd it go?
So I'm sitting here as a 56-year-old with a 19 and a 21-year-old. So there you go.
Yeah. So you're right in the right where I'll be in 20 years.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And it's fantastic, and it can be very fantastic. Yeah. But the thing I can share with you, my friend, is it does go like that. I mean, it's wonderful in every regard, but it does. Time can not get away from you. It's just we're all experiencing time theoretically the same way, but how we actually experience it, and are we engaged with life or not? And my thing was I just really wanted to be engaged with life all the time. And I think that's served me well for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm gonna die one day, so
We all are.
well. I think we live with this denial, that idea, at the very least, not respecting it. I mean, think about how much time the average person just wastes on nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
It's like they're gonna live forever. Or that's another thing that's really, really kicked into my brain is like my time. Well, in general, my existence has gone from being this wide window to getting way more narrow and way more focused. And it's like, not important. Better take care of this before the kid gets here, because otherwise I probably won't ever get to it. And then what am I going to shift to? What am I going to focus on? How am I going to be present? Because now I have like a real obligation, and it's not going anywhere. And on top of that, it's not like a pet, right?
No, they're not like pets, that's for sure.
So like maybe like, no, it's never really like a pet, because when it's a baby, it can't do anything but just yell, and then when it's an adult, it's like then it can yell, but a different way, but and totally autonomous. So I have to be invested and be there, and I'm really fortunate. I think about this a lot. My life, when I think about what like my ideal life will look like, kind of be structured like, when I started to think about that kind of stuff when I was 17, 18, 19. And I had an idea of how I thought I would achieve it. But and that didn't come to fruition. I thought I'd be like an athlete and be a writer in like the traditional sense. And I guess technically both of those things happen, and they've fed into everything. But the big part for me was I wanted to have time fluidity, because I'm getting away from the idea of time freedom, because one of the things that's becoming really clear to me is that when you work a 9 to 5, you have time rigidity.
Yes.
You have to be someplace at least 5, sometimes 6 days a week for a fixed amount of time. The trade-off, what you get in that situation, you get you know where your income is coming from. It's not tied to your performance usually, but it's going to be there. Worst case scenario, you just wait and you'll get paid, right? And also, if you get sick and you can't work, there are certain protections in place. and all that. Also, from what I hear, because the insurance is a lot cheaper, stuff like that. So there's a safety net. What the trade off is, it's completely inflexible. You got to ask for days off. You have to schedule things and figure things out around that. What I have, people go, "Oh, it's great. I do whatever I want. Time freedom, right?" Nah, it ain't like that. What happens is, one, I don't shut off. I work 24/7.
Absolutely.
Now I'm starting to see the light and figure out how to even get to the point where it's true freedom, which is going to be pretty much like, dividend paying income and that type of stuff. But right now, it's time fluidity I have. That means right now, for example, like we were having some weird feedback on his heart rate, so they wanted to have her come in for weekly NST non-stress tests and things like that. We've seen this get way more than the average person ever sees their unborn child. And I've been able to go whenever we go. I don't have to schedule, miss work, nothing. And same with her because of how she works.
Right.
What's the trade-off? Well, first off, if I don't make money, there's no wait. I got to go make it. If I go broke. Two, if I don't take care of something at one time, I got to take care of it.
It's waiting for you.
It's still waiting. It's not going anywhere. I can't Tom Bach. I'm like, no, I got to deal with it, or I don't get what I want.
100%.
I got to take care of my insurance, add my taxes, right? All that. But but that's the trade off. But that's the difference. The only difference. There's no real difference at the beginning, and in the middle, it depends. Where it starts to really tip in my favor is there's no upside for me. There's no restriction. If I want to take on another gig, I can. I just structure this one differently. That's the freedom there and being time fluid, but it's really starting to. I'm starting to see how this is going to be very useful coming up, and then she's also working this way. If anything, because of the people I talk to, I know that our problem, we're going to have a different problem, which is the kids got to get used to not seeing us in the house, right? So we got to figure out how to
different kind of structure.
Yeah, but still structure.
Certainly.
There's no free lunches. Everyone wants the upside, but they don't ever want to deal with the downside. And I don't think you ever want to deal with the downside, but they try to escape the downside instead of asking the question. Whenever you select the path, I think the question you should ask yourself is, what is the downside I can tolerate? Because everyone can, the benefits on either one are good. What's the downside that I can tolerate? Can I tolerate, realistically looking at being poor, or legit having no money? And am I ready to juggle all of these regulations and figure that out and fill out all this paperwork? Or does that sound worse than, okay, I got to ask for time off? I have sick days. There's no sick days in my life. But I got sick one time this year, and I was like, I got to do this work. I got to stay up and do it. And it'd be nice if I could just put it off, but I couldn't because I was, I told someone I'd do it, and you got to do it, otherwise you lose rep, and then you got to go get a job. That's what the problem is, when you have to do something because you burn the other option.
100%.
And that's the hard part for people. But yeah, that's
well, discipline with any entrepreneur is the thing that I believe a lot of folks that are working 9 to 5, generally 9 to 5, that's the thing they can't wrap their head around, because number one, they're not doing it. They see it being done, but they oftentimes don't see the actual discipline. They just see the results of the discipline.
Oh goodness, and maybe that's a nice transition point into traveling. I did, and I won't say always because it's not true. But since I have moved into the echelon that I have, so certainly in the past 5 years, done a lot of travel.
Right.
did a lot more this summer because we just figured that it's probably going to be for quite some time. Not forever, but quite some time. The last time we travel alone. Oh no! We 100% plan on making sure he and whoever comes after him is that they come with us.
Absolutely.
They don't ever. Everyone I talked to travels with their kids. They were like, "Hey, if you want to travel with them, just get them started because you don't want that environment to be a shock to their system."
I think it's good advice.
And on top of that, you don't want it to be a shock to your system. There's certain things you got to consider and do and plan for when you travel with kids now. So you just start learning it and start getting used to it now. But no, I 100% plan because I think about how I've learned. And I know that traveling and tours and hands-on is superior if you can do it. Thing is, most people can't do it, so that it's not presented as an option.
Right.
But if you can, like I would much rather instead of like having my kid go through a unit on the Civil War. Like, no, one of the things we went to Savannah, Georgia this summer. One of the places we went. And we did 2 different walking tours where we learned about Savannah's role in the Civil War and then in the Reconstruction and then up to the Jim Crow era. And we got it from 2 different angles, one with a food angle, one with a general history, angle. It was actually cool. It was called the 40 Acres and a Mule Tour. And you know where that phrase comes from. And so I learned all this stuff about like now Georgia, and Georgia wasn't originally like they didn't want to have slaves when Oglesby, I think that's his name, came over. He wanted to found this place with no slavery, and then Georgia being in the South and the colonies. On top of that, with it being because I guess the Spanish held Florida for a very long time, that Georgia was put up as a buffer between the British and kind of a safe way. So like knowing that, right? I'm not from Georgia, and just thinking about that role, I learned quite a bit. And then like how the cotton gin came about and things of that nature. That's a good way to learn, and so that's how it'll be done. But when people see the travels, they just see the outcome. They don't realize. I mean, not only so check this out. Just tell you a story. People think you travel, life is good, it's all free. Like, nah, man, we were there. Okay, so funny story, because I traveled so much. Our first class flights to Spain and back, those were all on points. But it was because of a sale the Delta was running. Of course, it was still, but it was on points. So it was smart. Was it free?
It's relevant,
not really,
right? Yeah.
But you don't think about it. Like, I didn't pay for those tickets.
Right.
But so we're there. Check this out. We're there. And what Anna does is she's involved in scheduling travel. She got a call from I think it was Alma or Avalon, one of the river cruise companies in Europe, and they're like, "Hey, we got to cancel our sailing because the river level of the Danube is too low. We cannot do it." Okay. And you may have seen news about this that I did. They were so loaded, like World War II ships that were sunk were like showing up. It was crazy. So she had to deal with that while she was there, because she had a group of 10. Wow. That was there. Some of them were already in Europe and everything. So she had to deal with that while we were in Europe. So that's the trade-off.
That's work.
We're going to hang out, see stuff, do stuff. She's got to deal with a real problem, and on top of that, got to deal with it with a time zone difference. And Europe is ahead of every time zone in America, so that means that she's either got to wake up early, or go to or effectively lose the middle of the day, right?
Correct.
So that's what was going on while we were there, and but was it worth it? Absolutely, because we got to handle it there and still got to have fun and see a lot of stuff there in Spain.
When's the last time you actually worked a job? How long has it been?
Where I was like a W-2 employee and filled out my very last job. I worked so right after I lost my my fight on TV. I got cut from Rock Nation, and that meant I got cut from the little bit of money they were paying me. So I had to get some work. The first thing I did, I went back to what I knew, because I'm not at that point. I mean, now I have so many resources and connections. I do not worry about ever not only ever being out of work, but ever getting paid less than a certain amount ever again.
Right.
But at that point, this was not the case. So I applied for work, and the first job I got was working. This was with Amazon, what they do during the holiday drive. They need people to work in the factory. So I was working in there, sorting packages, 4-hour block shifts, and that's how that was going. And then I got a job delivering the packages, driving, and that lasted about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because really, man, I'm lucky to be alive. I'm lucky no one was hurt. I had parked the van on a hill to get out and deliver packages.
Okay.
And the back door wasn't open. And remember, I have it parked on the hill. This is key. So you understand how car works. I have it parked. So I run back to turn the ignition off so I could open the back door, and I guess that's how it was set up. And there was some malfunction, and the brake, everything gave out, rolled down the hill into someone's yard. Fortunately, no one was outside. It was the middle of the day. I mean, not the middle of the day. It was the early in the morning, because they start you at like 5 a.m.
Right.
And no one got hurt. And that wasn't the part that made me say I'm done.
Okay.
What made me stop is their response. And this, to Amazon's credit, this was not Amazon. This was the third party they contracted out. Mm-hmm. Because now if you see Amazon trucks, it wasn't always like that. They used to contract out different people.
I remember.
Now it's all Amazon, because that's probably how they're going to protect the product. Anyhow, that company sent out somebody to get all my packages and get me in, and we had to do that route that day, just bang on like that. Because what they're supposed to do in the instance of any type of vehicular catastrophe, or really accident, any type of vehicular accident, they're supposed to make sure you weren't drinking, and of course they'll bring you back immediately. So to get me right back on delivering packages, that really, and then the person I was with that day, you want to talk somebody, miserable. It's like seeing the future. I'm like, well, this is what happens when you don't have options and you got to take what you have. And it just made me miserable. It was cold and awful, and I said, I'll figure it out. And I didn't know how I'd figure it out, but I said I'd figure it out. And so what happened, I remember the very, very clear progression. That accident happened. It must have been a Tuesday. They gave me the next day off, because that is part of their policy. Then that Thursday was Thanksgiving, and then they were like, all right, but we'll have you come in on Friday. And I remember thinking, Thanksgiving night, I can't go. I can't do it. And so I did not go. I told them I'm done. Mm-hmm. Went, turned in on my gear. I said, that's it for me. And I didn't have a plan.
That wasn't it.
Actually, I had a half-ass plan. I knew I was going to get back $800 for because I was still in school, and that would have been my refund. And I said, all right, that'll cover rent for January.
You had a 1 month plan.
Yeah, but ultimately, you end up with something cool ended up happening out of all that. I said, okay, I've really been busting my ass the past few years. I have a really strong math and science background by pure luck. Not pure luck, right? But circumstance. My coach asked me what I'm doing for money now, and I said I had found this place. It was varsity tutors were like somebody could like get online and request a tutor, and they paid $17.50 an hour, which at that point was like hurrah. But it was so inconsistent. I mean, we're talking 3 to 4 hours a week maybe. And my coach is like, let me talk to my wife, who's the guy, one of the counselors at Mars Area High School, and see if I could tutor her. And she comes back and says, he can tutor, we just don't need any more English or history. We need a math and science. Really, can he do that? And I'm like, yo, that's like all I can do. Like, so they brought me in, and that was that. So the last job was in the factory. After that, I was just contract work for myself and word of mouth on a really great job. Such a great job, actually. What was it, 2 weeks ago? I met up with the very first student I had. She's now a junior at Pitt, and we had coffee and then got to see how everything is doing because they all like once they because it's funny. They would just treat me like me. And then one day randomly they would look up something on the internet or like search me, and they would go, oh, this is not a normal person who. Here's Ed. And like a few times she would come back and be like, they were reading, a bunch of people in school were reading some tweet that you had wrote, and I was like, wow, and so.
That's a great feeling, right?
Well, what it does from a purely business perspective is what it does is that it sets parents' minds at ease.
Certainly, of course.
That when they go look me up, there is something out there, and it's all this positive stuff and these things I've done. So they're like, because like if you have nothing on the internet, that's like in this day and age, it's not suspicious.
Can be,
but it doesn't do anything for you either way.
Correct.
If I had, I had to be careful during this period of time once I realized parents would like look me up because I go on a certain podcast or show, and I had to think right, maybe it's not the best thing that I want them to see and come up, but it was never an issue, and unfortunately I was smart enough to know certain places to stay away from versus certain places to not stay away from. It was a great experience though, but it was cool because at that point I went from I charged initially $35 an hour, and they were like great, and then I found out that was really cheap. So and because I was good at what I was doing, and the price was that, I got work and I had to raise the price, and it still didn't make a difference. I mean, there were, in fact, to put it in perspective, what was that? That'd have been 2017 because I lost in 2016. So the spring of 2017, in particular, April and May, I made enough money to where I didn't have to, where I was fine not working for that whole summer. And it was cool, and it was all from tutoring. And then on top of that, I released my book, and then I learned affiliate marketing. Right. But that, being thrown, I got thrown into the fire, and I had to, figure it out. But I also, figured it out. Oh, and one other weird thing happened, man. You make the when you write online. This is why writing online is really magical, and I think everyone should, who is remotely interested, but it takes work, and you got to be consistent, and you got to love doing it. So most people won't do it, whether it's a podcast or writing or Instagram. Like, because of the content I put online, somebody reached out to me. It was the weirdest thing. It was like I said, I'm not doing this anymore, and later that week I got an email from somebody looking for who wanted to work with me one-on-one for some consulting.
Okay.
And then I was like, why don't you tell me like who you are, so I can see if I can help you. And he sends me back this pretty lengthy email with these links. And I'm not going to say his name. And I'm like, wow, you read my stuff. It was not, I would put him squarely as like a C, probably in the late 90s, definitely B-list celebrity. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Because I'm like, is this right? Like, I asked Annie on the show, and I was like, does this guy look like this guy? She was, oh, yeah, I used to watch that. So, yeah, all because of my writing online and stuff like that. So, because it's something I have been doing to help others and really to help myself, if you want to be honest.
Sure.
Be real here. Wow.
The TED Talk, man. I knew the moment we met that I was surprised you hadn't done one already, but I knew it was coming. But I want to congratulate you first off.
Oh yeah, man, that was I forgot all about that. Oh, I didn't forget, but like, you know what happens, right? So
he forgot about his TED Talk.
Here's what happens in my life is that I'm because I don't restrict myself to one domain, and I really try to embrace and develop and learn and grow. And opportunities always find me, and some of them are cool. And I'm also, on the radar reaching out for things. When I go someplace or on a show, they'll do my bio, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I did do that. Like, they're always like, yo, tell us who you are, and I'll say something, and I inevitably forget something. And they go, oh, but, and then, also, I was like, that's right, I guess I did do that. And that's a cool feeling, because that means, to me, when that happens, that means I'm always moving forward. Not,
of course.
Stuck. But yeah, that was a really cool thing, man. I hired a coach to help me get the talk when I was thinking about doing more speaking.
Was it more nerve-wracking being that it was a TED Talk? Did you feel, I've watched some of your other talks. Did it feel different to you?
So here's what was nerve-wracking. Or rather, here's what was challenging. They're timed. TED Talks do not go over 18 minutes.
Right.
And what the, I guess, organizer, moderator, what she told me was that for their particular audience, they try to stay under 10. And I said, okay. And that sounds like when people hear that, oh, you should come up with a 10-minute speech. You got to come up with a 10-minute speech. And you have to, if you want to do a good job and have this thing work well for you, you have to come up with a 10-minute speech. You have to have slides. Mm-hmm. You have to know it, like really know it. You can't just kind of know it. Like every speech I've done before then, I had points and I knew what I would say, and I was filling up. I don't want to say fill up space. You just have more space to work with. You have more time, okay? But you have 10 minutes, and then on top of that, I didn't find out. So they had first the whole TED Talk process. Here's how it works.
Okay.
You apply, right? And the application is pretty like what you would imagine it to be.
Okay.
Who you are, what you want to talk about, and then you also have to, depending on the audience, give them a video. Well, you always have to give them a video. It's just whether it's. I saw some that were like 30 seconds, all the way up to a minute and a half, where you're talking about your topic. They want to see you, and they want to sell you, and see that you're like marketing.
So, did you create a video to send them?
Yep.
Of you doing it? Interesting.
But it wasn't doing the talk. It was me talking about what I'll talk about and selling it. It was like writing copy, but you speak it. Okay, so you do that, and then you get contacted. The event I spoke at was TEDx Lake Travis High in Austin, Texas. That event was May 5th. It was either May 4th or May 5th, whatever that Saturday is, because me and Anna and I were supposed to go to Canada and she ended up still
Other
going.
direction.
She actually still ended up going because it was like for work.
Okay.
She gets these they call them familiarization trips, and she gets them and we go and they're fun and all that. But I was gonna go with her, but I couldn't because I got that to go. But I didn't find out. I sent the app in, and I found out like April. It was like the first week of April. I knew I had like 30 days to prepare the speech, and know it, deliver it, make it sharp. And almost because their intake form for whatever reason didn't capture my email address.
Okay.
So I started getting all of these messages on my I have a portal set up for my website. They went and found my website and they were like, "Hey, we really want you to talk. Can you still?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in." Boom. So then I went from scratch to prepare that talk and get it done. And then on top of that, I got all that anxiety, all that stress. I got a call like 2 days after the talk, and she's like, or like a week, and she was like, "So I got some bad news." The audio, some of it dropped out because if you watched it like
early,
but she was like, our team really did a lot of work, and we're pretty sure it's gonna be good because the way it works is you record it at the event, and the event is licensed. You need licenses, otherwise you can't put that TEDx thing behind it.
Got it.
And then once you do the video, you submit it to TED. And then they look at it and they go, "Is this yay or nay?" And then once they say yay, then they upload it, and then it's on the TED site. Like now, when you look me up, I'm showing as a TEDx speaker, and I can like say that. And so I gave this. Well, it only took like a month. I gave the speech on May 5th and June 17th.
Okay.
It uploaded, and you know what? She didn't even, because she normally knows, but she's a teacher. She was like off during the summer. Someone messaged me on LinkedIn and was like, "That was a great speech, addiction and identity." I was like, "How'd you know about that?" Because they don't tell me. They didn't tell me it was up. I said, "Oh, it's up, great." And so you've been using it as my
you didn't look nervous at all.
No, well, I'm not nervous. Speaking is not nerve-wracking.
No, you obviously knew the material frontwards and backwards.
You have to. In fact, and here's what was cool. I didn't know this. You learned me. So Lake Travis is like effectively a suburb of Austin.
Okay.
So there wasn't really anything to do, and
call up Joe Rogan's down there,
Getting up. and I think Dave Chappelle is too.
He is down there, yeah.
So there was nothing to do but get I went and got some food, and then I just rehearsed when I was down there. I just kept rehearsing, and it went off beautifully. I'm really happy about that. Now I have that thing there, and like one of the things I'm working on now, for example, is my book proposal. Mm-hmm. I can, one of the things they want to see, platform and where have you been and how do you speak? Here I am, like you can see me. It's one of those things that continues to add to, as I say, it adds to the legend of Ed Latimore, right? That's all.
The legacy.
Mm-hmm. So it was fun though, but I'm happy you enjoyed the talk.
I absolutely did, and it's funny because anyone who is in a position who has gone through and has gotten sober, whether it was voluntarily because you just wanted it out of your life or whether you really needed to do it, there's something in there that you talked about identity, and that's a big part of it. I mean, even for me, it was a voluntary. I didn't think I really had a problem, but once I got rid of it, my identity was odd for a while. Like I lost people in my circle. I lost all the social. Everything you talked about was like, wow, that happened to me. That happened to me. That happened to me. It was so spot on. Yeah, I mean here's the funny part about it, that I don't think people think about the identity issue.
Nope,
at all. It doesn't center around that.
It's an interesting part of the whole thing, and I think that this is one of the reasons why people relapse. Mm-hmm. I think I mean, there's no such thing as, perfection or whatever, or a perfect plan. But I think one of the things that really increases your odds of sobriety success is that, is when you're able to see yourself living a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a life now built like that, and people relate to you differently. One of the really big things that help, and I talked about it, is for the first time in my adult life, people were getting to know me not in the context of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I'm pretty cool. And I think this is a big deal with college. College, their entire socialization system is built around drinking. So when you leave college, what are you gonna do? Well, you only know one way to make friends and one way to socialize. People go, what are you gonna do if you don't drink? And I'm like, I don't look at that question like, well, what arrogance. I laugh in my head because I go, you're one of them. But I know, because I used to be that guy. I'd be like, what am I going to do? Let me find a bar when I'm in this place. Like, the first time it really clicked that I was like, just completely in a completely different mindset. And it was a little while after my sobriety day. Probably, this was before I went to Portugal, so probably like 5 years in.
Okay.
Right, because I stopped, and it's about 5 years in.
Okay.
I was down in Dallas, or Fort Worth, I guess, and that's probably significant here, somewhat. I was down in Fort Worth, and I went down a day early because that's just what made it easier for this dinner I was going to. And I said, well, what am I going to do with my time down here? And I was looking up museums and places where there was jazz music and places to walk. And that was like my first thought. It was like, these are the things. And not, but I know what old me would have been like. And it'd be like, we got to find the coolest bar and the most happening place. But there was no motivation to do that.
Yeah. I found, no, I did. I stopped during the pandemic. We talked about it a little bit. So it was naturally weird everywhere anyways. But and there wasn't a place to really go to the bar for a while. But I had to intentionally find and revisit the things that I really love about my life and immerse myself. The guitar was one of them. I found the instrument again. I found that because my social component pretty much went away that I was used to. And I also, when I would go to try to meet someone at a bar to have that social component, 20 minutes in, I couldn't wait to get the hell out of there. I'm like, wow, this is what it's like being sober in a bar, having a conversation with someone who's not sober.
Yeah.
And it's now you no longer want to be there.
And, that's one of the reasons why I'm so big in coffee now is, if you go to a coffee shop and have coffee, that's a different experience.
100%.
Very different experience.
100%. It's a lucid conversation generally too.
Yeah, and it's fun, man. I have a lot of fun with that kind of thing.
A lot of business gets done in coffee shops. I never really thought about that. It does.
Well, it's a different environment. You clear-eyed. I don't. Guys will tell me like, oh, I can't stop drinking because I have to do this with business and I have to go out and meet these clients. And I'm just like, trust me, dude, if you say I don't drink and you just go like, maybe, will it cost you to do it? Like maybe, but I just can't imagine what you give up is going to. I can't imagine it being a net loss. Maybe in the short term, there's somebody says, "Oh man, I wanted to party before I gave you a contract." But overall, as your reputation gets out for being somebody who's in control and reliable,
hugely beneficial.
So then you ultimately will win way more than you lose. I think about that a lot in my personal life because there are definitely relationships and situations where me not drinking has tipped the scale. I think about this a lot with my contract when I was fighting. I had to get my contract with Rock Nation. I was fighting. They had a guy come out to watch me spar and everything, and see how I did. And we're talking, and maybe he was on the fence, and he finds out I don't drink, and like so now I'm never a liability. Like ever.
Okay,
For sure. Fighters are always in it. Not always, but often enough to where I think that worked in my favor.
In that circumstance, I certainly think so. I know it isn't alcohol related, but I've struggled for a long time with the fact that I won't golf. I don't like it. I think it's an incredible waste of time. But being the careers I've been involved with, especially years in corporate in the 90s and so forth, and now being a realtor, a lot of stuff happens on the golf course. And I'm recognizing that there probably are deals I have not been a part of because I don't partake in that. But my time is too valuable.
Yeah, you have to decide, like, you have to try and build the optimal life.
Right.
And optimization problems are amazing to work on, because what you have to do with an optimization problem is you have to find the best combination of inputs, the total and output, but you have to figure out what is most important to input. You get something, you give something up. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how it goes, right? Mm-hmm. And if your time is important, right?
It should be for everybody, right?
Not for everybody.
That shouldn't.
The person there, right? You have to go. All right. Well, this is my priority, and I'm willing to take a hit here, so I can be fine here. The first thing that comes to mind, there's this person I follow on Instagram, and they had a post about. They're in finance. They had a post about. How they both work from home, and they could like send their kid to a private school or even homeschool them, but their priority is to be able to retire by like 45. So they take their money. That means they both have to work. Like each of them makes enough to where they neither the other could not work, but that's their priority. And to me, like that's not how I would play the game. That's not like why I got into working for myself. But you have a goal and you're working towards it. I think about this with my site too. Like my website. I'm for all intents and purposes severely undermonetized, right?
Okay.
But I know that if I tried to extract every single dollar from the site, then the site would lose the power that the site has, and that power is important to me. That reach, that authenticity, the ability for it to be, 100%, to help.
100%.
I can't have every article hit big keywords, because sometimes the things I want to write about to be an authentic website, they're not going to be huge keywords. That's just the truth of the matter. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I got to pick what I want to write about. I got to be intentional. I have to, and when you live your life this way, you kind of pick your priorities and your values. Then the decision is made for you before you even get into the place where you have to choose. Like it's like drinking. Like my stance. I am not drinking. Right. Have not drank. That decision then. That already decides certain places I'm going to go, certain things I'm going to do.
I've learned.
And so there's no stress. And I don't feel a certain way about it because I'm winning on, what I'm getting. Anna always says it just passively, but she acknowledges it, and it's really, I think it's cool that she at least acknowledges it. She, every now and then she'll just go, I'm so happy you don't drink. And that's, there was like one time we first started dating where she like seen me even remotely intoxicated before I stopped completely. But her understanding how crazy it could be without knowing me, there's a whole timeline that I don't interact with, whole set of problems I just will never have,
right?
Because because that's gone. And maintaining that sanity that's the optimal point for that. That's what's important to me. I think people get into a lot of trouble when they forget about trade-offs.
No doubt.
When they because there's no best, there's only preferred. And if you remember that, you're gonna stay out of trouble, because you'll go, okay, this is what I want, and this is what I don't want. Do those two things come together?
So, is it just the chemical dependency is so overwhelming with chemically? Because not having hangovers, not having my joints ache as a middle-aged guy, not worried about what I said to someone that I can't remember, all that stuff not being a part of my life anymore is like, this is a whole new world for me. It just is. And I don't think I was really that dependent physically on it, but I didn't have to worry about those things anymore. The hangover part's amazing, not to be, because it's tough being middle-aged anyway. You'll get there. You're going to be sore in places you don't even know you have. But ultimately, not having on top of that, having the hangovers is so strong of a compelling reason not to even consider drinking anymore, to me. But what I'm asking you is the chemical part, for those who drink heavy, so heavy, or do you think there's other emotional issues that...
Oh, I think I think there's an emotional component. I don't think the chemical dependency on alcohol is the driving force behind the addiction. I think there's a lot of other things.
Okay.
Like a lot of other things. I think people are trying to escape. I think there's a big part of that, because I'm a big believer that when you're looking at addiction, you're really looking at trauma.
Okay.
That for sure. I think that there's a very strong social component, and we are social animals, and to have that social glue be removed, people don't know how to make friends. And that's a big problem in general with adults and people. They don't know how to make friends. They grow up as minors, and they don't ever have to make friends. They're just kind of put in places where someone happens to have commonality, and you kind of mesh with the best people.
Right.
And then they go to college, same deal, and then work. Very few people go and make friends. And what that means, so the general mechanism for making friends is still the same. I think you end up in a group and you have some shared things, and you pick some people from that group you really vibe with, or the whole group, whatever. But the difference between myself and I think most people is that I have major inflection points in my life where I went and exposed myself to a new group of people. When I started fighting, I met a whole new group of people, right? And then through there, kept meeting new people. A lot of guys haven't made a new friend since college.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
And outside of work, because where else are they gonna meet people? So I started training and fighting. That's a new group of friends. I joined the military. That's a new group of friends I meet and associate with. I really did the writing and connection online. There's a whole slew of people I've met online that I stay connected with, and I'm in with the chess community. Make friends there. So that's 4 right there, and I bet that's not even the end of it, because I know that when I have kids, there's a whole now community of parents. But that's a little different. I kind of put that closer to the way we typically make friends, which I have no idea how close people become if their kids start hanging out, but I think when you have your set values and in place and you live by them, it makes it a lot easier to get rid of people who would not be good friends. If somebody's like, we got to go out and party and drink, and they're like a couple, for example, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're not gonna click. It's just not. What are we gonna do? Or if Anna was a big drinker when I met her, I think it would have been harder.
Sure.
Because remember, I didn't stop drinking until we were like a few months. But if that was like her identity, like I went on a few dates with a girl like right before I met Anna, and she was like in the club scene, I would have never been able to drink. Like she was like a server or something. I would have never been able to stop. It wouldn't have made sense.
No,
it would have been hard. I would have actually been incentivized to keep drinking.
Oh, 100%.
So
yeah,
if that doesn't. You gotta your environment makes a big difference, man. I think your environment makes a huge difference, and if you're not willing to consciously mold it, it's going to mold you, and it's not going to be necessarily in your best interest. It's going to be to the average of the environment, and since you probably didn't pick your environment, you lose complete control or a significant amount of control over who you become.
Well, doesn't that go back to that? Also, does it bridge into, you are the product of the 5 or 10 people you surround yourself with?
Oh, for sure. You otherwise you wouldn't be around them. I mean,
that's a harsh concept. I've had people actually fight me on that.
People hate it.
They won't. They don't
to
want to.
Absolutely
they deny
hate
it.
it.
I've had folks deny that.
People love to think, well, the giant egalitarian. I'm gonna hang out with the bums and the crackheads and also the millionaires. I'm like, no, you're not. You're like you think your circle is diverse, but we'll break it down. Let's look at the people you spend the most time with. And then I'll be able to tell you if they reflect you or not. And a lot of times, when what happens is people try and change the parameter. They think it means they're general acquaintances. I'm like, no. We're talking people that you see 3 to 4 times. Mm-hmm. Even as an adult, I'd still put it at per week. So what that means is that, for a lot of us, that's our family and coworkers. Mm-hmm. And so let's look at your family. Well, how do they reflect the metrics that are they vastly different? Are you guys about the same in terms of BMI and health and income? Not so much, but by definition, with your employers, almost for certain, right? And level of education. Very few people can escape that. And then a funny thing happens. The people who realize and accept that truth and who are able to escape it don't want to. They start using it to their advantage.
You're exactly right.
Like one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm running 1 hour sessions within a larger writing group, and I wanted to become part of the writing group. One, because I went through the program myself. But I went through the program not because I need help publishing or polishing my writing, though I'm always open-minded. I said I'm looking at the people who are enrolled and the alums and the guy who's running it. I'm like, these are the people who I want to be like. And with my peers, so I said, let me join this group, and then I'll come back and teach this group. Now I'm in the game, right? I'm in the game, and I'm contributing in the game. So what's going to happen? The same thing that's happened with everything else I've done. Simple. I found an interest. I paid to be in that group, right? And you're paying every time you go into a group, whether it's with your time or your money, or 100%. Sometimes a combination of both.
It's life.
Then I sit back and be humble in the group and learn, pick up the metrics and the way things are done. That's when I was in the class as a student, and now I come back as a teacher. I actually have a post on my website about this process. It's just like that, how to make friends as an adult.
I read it.
Once you and now I'm doing it here. The difference is now my friends are billionaires and founders and investors. Same deal. Once you find a way in, you got your way in. Now you got to be humble and you got to be patient and you got to be really interested in learning and contributing. It's not about that's a group of rich people and I want to be rich. No.
Right. It doesn't work that way.
That's a group of people who have a skill set or a knowledge or a lifestyle that I have, that I want to have. Right. And it works. it's a beautiful. Once you understand that system, it's a beautiful system.
So stopping that behavior is that a combination of like lack of humility, laziness, ego, all just in the pot, just keeping people from not doing it's
if I had to pick one thing, and it's rarely one thing, but if it's just like a pie chart and what's the biggest piece, I think people get very attached to what they know, familiarity and comfort. It's not just the comfort zone. People talk about that a lot. It's what's familiar. It's what do you know. Because
doesn't challenge.
Like for example, how there was this game back in the day. I used to love this game. Oh, I mean, I guess it's still there. One of the things I'll have this game in my house when I have a house. Dance Dance Revolution. Go, you move your feet on the pads.
My kids had that.
So fun, man. But there's a certain type of person that they're not even going to try it because they got to stand up and expose themselves and look a little foolish.
Right.
You can't become good if you're not going to look stupid.
Right.
You don't get to make progress in anything. So what they end up doing is living this life of familiarity. And over time, here's the thing about comfort. It's like anything. It compounds over time. So, all right, it's like, yeah, that's what I tell people. They go, well, what about you? And I say, it gets harder and harder to change the older you get. And I go, what about me? I was making these changes in my life. That's always been part of me. It just so happens you see the part that comes with visual financial change, but this has always been a part of my personality. But if you get to the age of 35 and you want to make major changes in your life, you're instead of dealing with, we'll just say from birth, which is not accurate, but we'll just make the numbers correct, and make the numbers easy. Instead of dealing with 20 years of change or 20 years of habits that you got to change, now you're dealing with 35. That means they had 15 more years, and it wasn't a linear increase in strength. It was a compound interest growth in strength, closer to exponential.
Right.
If we model on the graph. So now you got to deal with that, and then you got to deal with all the systems you've set up to support those habits. This is one of the things I was very aware of when I made the changes, and probably the most significant change in my life was when I decided to go back to school, and everything that had to happen to support that. I still benefit from that today. That was a decision I made almost 10 years ago, and I'm still living off of it. But here's the thing. Imagine if I don't make that decision and I continue to support and reinforce the life that I had lived at that point.
Okay.
Well, now I'm more invested emotionally. I'm more invested temporally. Both of those things combined means that they're just stronger habits and stronger disappointments to make. There's a huge opportunity cost. Huge I mean, like I think about this with my boxing in general. If I had started boxing 1 year earlier or 1 year later, because there's a timing aspect. But 1 year later is easier in this context. But I also say 1 year earlier. But the program would have still existed. I would have just been at a different point in my career. I don't know if I ever get in the program out in California where I really that's what took me from a stumbling neophyte. That's where I really learned to fight, because it was sparring every other day.
Right.
Fighting, I fought 24 times in 1 year. Wow. Opportunity cost. There's a big opportunity cost of not taking action, and that compounds too. So your habits get stronger for your life, and what you miss out on, what you lose, continues to compound. So that costs increase. So by the time if you haven't done anything or made any big changes yet, by the time you get 40. What are you gonna do? It's gonna be so hard. You're not gonna have anything to help you out here. You're in here. You got 40 years of an identity that you're gonna just snap and change in one instant. In theory, in application, even it has happened, but it is rare.
I can imagine.
It's so rare that we hold up the people who do it as an example. And that's when you know something's a big deal. Whenever it's told as a story, right, to inspire and move. If it was just regular and easy, we wouldn't be moved by it. You don't hear too many stories about the 18-year-old that decided to go off to college. That's kind of what they're supposed to do. You hear a lot more about the people who decide to go back in their 30s and 40s.
So maybe you can help me understand something that I've never been able to wrap my head around. To me, I have lived my life in a way where I don't have a lot of fear to make global decisions. That's not always served me well. But case in point, like I jumped into entrepreneurship. I saw a good idea, I ran with it. I modified it and worked it. It ran its course. I had to do something else. Oh, Realtor seems to give me the lifestyle I want. I mean, it wasn't like a hard decision.
Yeah.
And for the hard work and a little bit of serendipity, it worked out for me. My point to you is, I get questions from people who say, "Well, I could never have done that. How'd you do that?" Like I am of the mindset that I just didn't find it that difficult. But I do understand now at 56, when I look at life, that was pretty difficult for most people to make a global decision. But is it just because I'm not wired that way? Do I have not enough caution in my life? I mean, I don't know why I'm that way, but that's how I am.
Here's the thing, right? So the definition of risk. Risk is the exposure to the possibility of harm.
Okay,
it's really important. Possibility.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, and then there's two kinds of risk. We got your pure risk, which is just, is this plane going to crash or not? Right. Not really a benefit there.
Right.
And then this is where it gets interesting, the speculative risk, gambling, investing. Mm-hmm. It can go up or down.
Certainly.
And generally speaking, the more volatile or uncertain a path is, the greater the risk, right? The greater the corresponding reward that comes with it.
Okay.
That's why we're rewarded more when you bet on the plus, right? Because any outcome you'll get something, but to match the what you lose, I learned to read betting odds this year, and I'm just amazed at how when you read them, it's kind of counterintuitive that the plus side is the underdog.
Right.
But then when you understand what they're measuring it against,
Correct.
what you have to bet to win $100.
Correct.
I got it, right? But
people still think the system isn't rigged.
but going back to all this, right? So you have this idea of the speculative risk. The more you risk, the more you gain. The idea is to put yourself in position to where you're able to gain. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can do that is to put yourself into positions where you can lose.
Okay.
Here's the trick.
Okay.
You're not really going to lose.
Yeah.
It just seems that way. What you really face is discomfort.
Okay.
The failure isn't guaranteed. If you don't do the work, if you don't hustle, right? And then there's also like derivatives of what you were trying to do, externalities that occur where you're like, I was trying to do this and I kind of, I failed, but a bunch of other stuff opened up for me. And I got the skills of trying to develop that skill.
Of course.
So there's if I was to like write out this kind of metric for change or success, it would look something like willingness to expose yourself to risk, and then decreasing that risk by cliche hard work, discipline, all that kind of stuff, right? And then what you do is because you don't decrease the possibility of the reward, you decrease the risk. So what you turn it into is an asymmetrical bet. You bet one, you end up winning 10, 20, 30.
Right.
And you don't do that by you. And the funny thing is you do it by exposing yourself to less risk.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why
do people see that?
Why don't people see it? Because that's hard. People aren't that smart, too. I don't know.
It doesn't seem that difficult.
But it's also, but in all seriousness, getting rid of like the intelligence argument. it's not emotionally comfortable. People are like, our programming is very strong to avoid discomfort, and that makes sense from a survival standpoint, because what's gonna it's gonna benefit you more, avoiding something that can kill you or finding something that can extend your life by a year, right? And that's kind of extreme, but I wanted to make the point. Avoiding pain has a bigger payoff, generally speaking, than expanding pleasure or expanding reward. Okay, that's just how we're wired to avoid pain.
For sure.
Some of us figure out, really by accident, I think, occasionally by training, and sometimes just by the luck of the way we're designed, we don't feel it the right way. That risk is that exposing yourself to it, and taking those hard lumps and toughening yourself to it. That's the only way to get the reward. We don't, if rewards were easy to get, they wouldn't be rewards. So that means you have to do unpleasantness, but we're programmed to avoid that unpleasantness. Most of us we're just slaves to our programming. I mean, that's the if you want real concrete proof of how much of a slave to our programming we are, and look at the obesity rate in the country and the overweight rate. That's largely a result of us not modifying how we live and eat to our modern society. We haven't figured it out. We're just stuck, being slaves to our programming.
So if we go there, the sedentary lifestyle, addicted to screens, television, in conjunction with that, bad food choices. The most convenient thing to find to eat is typically what we get, right? Sometimes it used to be the most cost-effective thing, but even now, junk food and
it's a weird world we're in, So that's if you get that, if you understand this, that people avoid pleasure way more than they seek, equivalent pain, and this is summed up in the loss aversion bias as well. We feel losing $5 a lot more than we feel winning it. It's just not, People get mad over losing, like legitimately angry. Like for example, like this is how your brain works differently. Like I'm like, oh man, they messed up my change, right? Some people get mad about this, Are people who, if you ever split a meal with some folks, how are you going to pay? Which is why I don't do it. Either I'll pay for the whole thing or somebody else does, but I try to keep my mind away from that. It freaks people out to overpay. People would rather like, I think overpaying, they feel like they're when they're losing. I think I really think if I told somebody I'm gonna give you a 10% discount, that sounds cool. But if I say that I under or overcharged you by the equivalent amount, they're going to be a lot angrier about the latter than the former, even though it's the same amount.
Why is that?
Like I said, I just think losing costs more
mentally.
Well, not just mentally, but we paint that whole scenario like on the plains of the savannah, like when we're cavemen wandering around. You lose a lot. Getting hurt costs you more than finding shelter. For example, let's say we're running along. If I break my toe, that's a much bigger deal in my life than if I find some extra berries or something. So if I got to decide between risking breaking my toe and getting some extra berries by reaching, I'm going to be like, I need this toe to find other food. These extra berries are going to be good for a little moment. All right. So we're working on it. Not realizing this world is incredibly safe. It is very hard to fail, like really hard. Once you get in the modern world, it's hard to, especially in America, really anywhere in the developed world, very hard to be truly destitute. And
I think it's too easy to survive.
It's super easy to survive, but we still have the feeling. It's like when we were growing up, you ask a girl for a phone number. It means nothing, and in many ways, it benefits you really if you succeed. But how many guys were afraid to talk to girls because that pain, that rejection, that ostracization, that's rooted something deep.
I think it's worse than ever now. I mean, case in point, I'll share this with you, Ed. I had my son on at 21, and Rocco Koza, my attorney friend, he had his son at 20. It's a father-son podcast. It was great. Revealed a lot. Interesting. But that cyberbullying thing was revealed to both Rocco and I through our conversations with our sons, that they were timid beyond the timidity that him and I remembered in dating and things. They were even afraid to take it to the next level because not that they would have a personal rejection face-to-face, which they don't communicate that much that way anymore, but they were worried about being put on blast if the girl decides to turn them down. They were worried about being put on blast. Now, here are two good-looking, functional, articulate young men. I'm biased, but there's no reason for them to be having any social problems. But that fear of being put on blast was a thing, man. I was like, it knocked me off my feet for a second because I'm saying, what are you worried about being rejected? Go. Well, I don't validate that, but
that's a part of our experience.
Yes, it is
rejection.
Yes, it is.
We don't deal well with it.
It's different now too. I think the younger, I don't know, the sub 25 folks are dealing with that virtually too now. That rejection component.
Well, check it out. What ends up happening, because a lot of our mechanisms as humans are anti-fragile, and we get stronger when we expose ourselves to the antagonist. Our immune system works this way. Our muscular system works this way. You break it down. You expose it to something that hurts it. It comes back stronger. I think our ability to deal and navigate with people and their nastiness, whatever we want to call that, also works the same way. And there's some good proof out there that it does. Dr. Jonathan Haidt, he's got this great book, The Coddling of the American, the coddling of the American mind. I think he said like that, or the
American Society.
I can't remember the name of it. The coddling of the. I think it's coddling. But yeah, what he does is he looks at how Gen Z and I guess younger millennials too are being brought up, and one of the big changes that occurred is that generation, that time period, because millennials are a weird bunch because there was so much change in the millennial range that I don't even like, because technically I'm in the same generation, born in 85 as someone born in 95, and our experiences are completely different
100%.
Because of the way technology changed things. But one of the things he talks about are the metrics of risk that you can look at, and he used 3 metrics to make this a certain argument about why these kids are the kids are taking less risk, and we'll put those metrics aside and then go back to why he thinks this is happening. He goes, something changed in the parenting where we decided to shield our kids from being functional on their own. And in all of his talks, he likes to start out asking this question, or at least if y'all saw on YouTube, where he goes, okay, what year were you born? And he separates the Generation X, Millennial, and then Z, pretty much, right? Now millennials have the greatest range because of many things, but he goes, now what age were you allowed to go play beyond the vision of your parents? And Gen X, they were like that was ever a thing. And,
Right.
and millennials,
That's my life.
Millennials are like, they were like double-digit ages. Not millennials, Gen Z. They were like double-digit ages.
Yeah.
And it's this idea of this like helicopter parenting
No
that
doubt.
really showed up. Plus, you get the internet, and that plays a role because that removes, that gives you a safe launching pad forever. And like my favorite example is when you called a girl. You had to call through her parents and talk to her parents
First.
and then talk to her. Now you slide in the DM. Right? Same with asking a girl. You had to go face to face. People looking would know. You had to see her reaction.
Beautiful system, Ed.
Right? Well, not only was it a beautiful system, it was a rite of passage.
Certainly.
And now we don't have those at all. All right? So, take these examples. Those 3 metrics. 1, he goes, Gen Z, they get their driver's license a lot later.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
And the comparison, he goes, when I was a kid, the thing you did, like when you were the day of your birthday, a lot of people tried to go and get their license. Now it's like, why learn how to drive? And having taught 2 people how to drive now, and I guess, you have at least taught 2. I can tell you right now that on my part is stressful because I'm like, this is not how I want to go, right? But you got to do a good job and calm down. You got to be calm, otherwise they freak out.
Certainly.
And then eventually they grasp, but that's a very risky thing to do. Learn how to operate something that could kill you. Okay? That's 1. Then there's the dating and sex thing. This blew my mind. Did you know that the Gen Z is like having... none, but like the least amount of sex of all, and this is not tied to the fertility rate, which was already decreasing.
Absolutely.
But and with that metric, 27% of guys under the age of 30 are virgins.
It's crazy.
Or they were virgins or haven't had sex in the past year.
You could never imagine that.
Right, craziness. That's 1 in 4. And that's significant. People don't go on dates. People don't ask each other out. No one's trying to go. Nothing. All right? Because those are risky behaviors.
They are.
You have to, and by risk, I mean in the pure speculative. You have to go out there. You got to expose yourself to the possibility of getting rejected. But if you don't, then you succeed. There's no way to get one or the other, right? Like, low-hanging fruit or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
And then the last one, I thought this was really interesting. The amount this is an interesting metric because it spikes up in the, we'll call them older Gen Z, I guess, but the amount of drinking done in high school has fallen.
Oh yeah,
and that's really positive in general.
Certainly.
But one of the things he talks about with that, he uses that as a proxy metric for socialization. And because it's fallen so much, it's not like kids are getting together and going to Bible study or something like that. That would be awesome, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is they're just getting together less. And a lot of the drinking is driven socially. So
Correct.
So he looked at those he talked about those 3 metrics in his speech, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And the internet makes it easier to do this. And what happens when you don't take these risks younger, you don't, because we're anti-fragile, you have not built yourself up to take risks when you're older.
Yeah, that emotional muscle is not there.
It ain't there. And on top of that, you also can't deal with reality. He correlated this a lot to the concept of safe spaces that popped up, which is like a relatively new thing. Right? A place where you're safe from words. Imagine that. No one is saying people should be able to run around and just call you slurs and stuff like that. But at the same time, there was a certain level of mental toughness that we had to all develop to just deal with the ups and downs of life. Comedians talk about this. Oh, the older comedians are like, doing comedy now. Where are you going to do it? Certainly not for the younger generation.
Like what's comedy look like today?
I have a tweet that, I remember one comic making, he didn't like it, but he made something later, and I shared it underneath. It was like, the way things are going, comedy is either going to be not funny or completely illegal, one or the other. but you can't
Or
do
both.
or both, right? But you can't make comedy's a release of tension, and that means talking about the things that are tense. And if you can't do that, then what happens? You know, a lot of the comedy specials go this super weird, safe, odd route, and that's why, like Dave Chappelle's last special, the one where he was.
Is that when he looked out to the audience and said he was describing like who he couldn't stand or who's killing comedy, and it's you? He looked at them. And goes,
I don't think it was that one. It was when he was he had the Space Jews joke repeatedly. That one. No, it wasn't that funny. I thought, but what he was doing, he was making a point. Yeah. And fortunately, Netflix, the people in control of Netflix, because it's not just enough to have people with the right ideas. They got to be in the right places, because that guy could not have the power, and the person right above him could have had a completely different thought. He said, "We're not going to get rid of Dave." Right. And then the guy on Spotify did something similar. Said something similar. Like, we're not going to get rid of Joe.
So let me talk about cancel culture for a second. I don't think we ever touched on it prior. So what happened to you? Because you didn't get deplatformed, but didn't they take your blue verification check away?
Oh,
what happened? Did you get kicked off for a period of time? What happened to you?
No, on Facebook, man. I was just being silly, man, and and by silly, I mean to say I crossed the line is not correct.
You kicked the bear.
Okay, so when they gave me it on my personal profile on Facebook, I was like, because I use Facebook differently than I use Twitter.
Certainly.
So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just be like, that's what I did. I mean, I was just an asshole with it. Like, not exactly that way, but I didn't, think about certain things, and you get the suspension and whatever, you get the ban, and then they're like, well, I'm gonna take the check. Because,
it's a different playing field like Facebook, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I'm on 3 major platforms, or rather, I have a significant audience on 3 major platforms: Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. This is gonna blow your mind. I think Facebook is the worst. Okay, are they the worst? I think Facebook is the most reactive, but but I think their review process is a lot better than Twitter's. And then it extends to Instagram, because
is it less political?
Nah, it's just everything is political,
right?
But I have not seen. Okay, like my experience, I don't talk about politics, but my experience, when I feel like they got something wrong and I appealed it and I explained, they're like, "Oh, our bad," and I'm good, right? Twitter tends to be a little less democratic in this way. But in terms of like the politics, I spend a lot of time seeing things that come on both sides, and I have to now I also try to intentionally keep don't even look at it, man, because people just go crazy with stuff. But a lot of times, I don't, sometimes it is put out as misinformation. And that's incorrect. But a lot of times what guys are doing, there's this weird idea, right? And we'll use the pandemic because this is really the best example where this came from. You got regular ass people with no education or at least no qualification, meaning no education, and they go, this is a scam and this is fake and this, that, and the other, right? Pretty much disparage everything that's put out that infringes upon their freedom, and they feel like it's a big deal. And then policies change as we learn more and grow, and they go, "How, we told you so." And I'm like, you didn't. You just shouted something, and you happen to be right. and you don't even and we can't even say you happen to be right. Why a thing changed can come from many reasons, but just because you were like, this is silly, and then it changed, and you're like, oh, we said it was a scam. Like, and I don't even bother arguing with those folks, because one thing I found is that you can't. When you seek the truth, you don't get allies, but you lose is you what you're doing is stepping away from the group on both instances. Yeah,
both groups.
Because when you see, because there are people that go, yeah, you're a liberal. I had people call me a liberal and block me, and I'm like, I've been called a lot of things. That's probably the wrong. But likewise, people go, man, he's conservative, red pill dude. I'm like, because red I think
pill dude.
Yeah, well, it's a
red and the blue thing.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, because whatever people see, they assume I'm part of that. Yeah. But when I say something that's against it, because I'm just looking for the truth, right, I'm not part of that group anymore. I made, easy example or great example. I said, when they were rioting after George Floyd, I said, I'm not saying they should be rioting, but you got to understand where these people are coming from and why they feel this way. All they had to do was arrest a few people, or and administer justice when it was obvious. Like the cop who choked out Eric Garner. If we had just arrested that dude, we probably could have avoided a lot of other BS.
Yes, indeed.
And people thought I was some crazy liberal
for saying that.
That's crazy, right? On the flip side,
okay,
I am vehemently against any mention of sexuality in an elementary school classroom. I don't care if you want to call it the Don't Say Gay bill or whatever. I do not support it. And one of the mental things that I've already checked off from my list, because we just happen to live in a very liberal city, is I've prepared for the possibility of having confrontations and losing friends. I don't think that'll happen, but I've just prepared for that possibility. Is I have a kid, because I don't think that's acceptable, right? So people think I'm some kind of conservative because I think that, and I'm like,
so everything's a litmus test.
Weren't you just paying attention when I was talking about the riots?
Of course not. Right? Of course not.
I said something I thought was very reasonable. I said I'm as pro First Amendment as anybody else. Or Second Amendment. I'm as pro Second Amendment as anybody else. I think you should have guns, whatever, right? But I think, given how easy it is for these things to take someone's life, everyone should have mandatory training.
Of course.
You should have to log a certain amount of hours with your firearm and I don't care what it costs. And they go to someone's like, what about the cost of bullets? I'm like, bro, you bought a gun. What did you think that the government was going to give you bullets for free? What did you weren't going to practice with it? That's already demonstrating not thinking through this weapon. And you won't believe the kickback I got from people calling me some type of crazy liberal, or wanted to control or take the guns. And I'm like, bro, I think everyone should have them. You just got to train with them. When you start,
it's almost not even worth it anymore to talk about anything.
It's weird, man, because what they've done, they made everything political, or not political. They made everything polarized,
right?
And so, just using what we were talking about as an example. Let's say, we'll divide it into two groups, or rather, we'll talk about three subjects: abortion, guns, and and sexuality with children, trans stuff, all that, right?
Okay,
there's three things. All right, I can be. Imagine you're pro-life, imagine you're pro-choice, and you're anti-gun. But you're a thinking, sensible person with kids, and you're like, I don't want that shit around my kids. And you think that, but you can't say that now, otherwise you get out the group. So now you gotta align with this, and it's the same thing over here. You can't get it takes a lot, not a lot of courage, but a lot of thinking to go, all right, this, that, I'm not for that. You want to see a really brutal example? I love American History X as a movie, because
I remember that movie. Yeah,
it demonstrates some really interesting.
Edward Norton, right?
It demonstrates some really interesting ideas about, are points about group dynamics and
group think?
What ends up happening to Edward Norton in jail? He first he gets there and he's looking for his people, so he takes off his shirt. He's got the swastika on his chest, and the white supremacists call him over, right? Mm-hmm. And that's his car. That's who he's going to run with. All right. And then he realized that they're dealing drugs with the Mexicans and the blacks, and he's like, "Oh, he shouldn't be doing that." Now he's pursuing the truth. He doesn't get praised for thinking. Nope. What happens? They rape him and kick him out the gang.
Yep.
That's what happens. So when you decide to really think, and I think this is once again the avoidance of pain. Back to what we were saying. Mm-hmm. When you decide to really think, you are not going to get a bunch of support all of a sudden. It does not work like that. I wish it worked that way. It will make the truth popular.
It should work.
But the truth forces people to confront a lot of things that are going to necessarily cause them discomfort, and we try to avoid discomfort.
So let me give you an example of why I was confused politically as a kid. And it's exactly this, but it wasn't talked about as much because I don't think the technology was around for us to communicate. When I finally understood, I had a Republican father and a Democratic mother, and that world collided all the time at the dinner table. We were Catholics, Christians, right? Mm-hmm. And, the whole town was Democratic. And I just could not understand how Catholics / Christians, in a broader sense, could generalize or make excuses for the abortion thing to keep voting Democrat. Now, back then, it wasn't liberal versus conservative. They actually called it the parties, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't wrap my head around why Catholics and Christians were okay to vote Democrat religiously in this area. But one of the biggest tenets talked about, and even in the 70s, was the abortion, How can you be anti-abortion and vote? And no one explained that to me. So that was my first acceptance. Said that I have to be a critical thinking person and kind of say, hey, I got to look at the issues that matter to me, the big ones, and then weigh my options. And if I don't like either option, I don't vote. I'll be the first to tell you if I don't like. Then that speaks pretty truly to the last couple elections because I can't rest confidence in either decision. Somewhat, anyways. I just don't partake. But that's always been going on. But I think we weren't afraid. I wasn't afraid to ask that question back then. I would be afraid as a young person to even ask a political question like now because the vitriol coming back from either side is just ferocious. I mean, it's ferocious.
It's These are the things. These are the things I have to think about. How do I prepare my son for this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, but that's always been a big one, because a good amount of the Catholics in this country they associate themselves as part of the Democratic Party, but that's the linchpin. One of the linchpin arguments for them is abortion, and they don't support abortion. But yet, and I never, but that was a good learning experience for me because that showed me that life is not black and white. You need to think. You need to think. And now, instead of encouraging that, we've gone a different direction where we're finding a team, and it's groupthink, right? I mean. Did you know that the Republican Party did not put out a national platform last election? It was the first time. And I wondered, did they not do that because they might be fearful of doing so?
What's a national platform?
Every party seemed to come out and they would give 20 tenets of things that the party stands for. They're rooted. They're rooted in things. But they didn't do that. There wasn't one. And I thought that was very strange.
Well, I don't know. I don't think. I can't remember where I read it, but I don't think democracy is a sustainable system.
I know.
Especially because you get once people realize that you get votes on favor, then policies start going to generate more votes, and those are almost certainly never going to overlap with the best policies.
100%.
So that ultimately the incentives of politicians are completely misaligned for what's best to what's best for the country.
Let me ask you this question about the system, like the process, because there's a lot of distrust in politics in general, but even in society, whether that happened because of the pandemic or the pandemic accelerated it, we're in this weird world where like these deep fake video images coming, like our reality is kind of being tested to some degree. Are people going to believe the elections going forward? Like, how would we possibly solve the integrity that what's actually happening?
Look, they have
real?
The ability to solve the integrity issue. They whether they go forward or not and do it is a completely different issue. But they have the ability to. We are, this is one of the things, you can say what you want about, election deniers or whatever, but they raise some interesting points. And one of the points is why aren't we shown why don't we have a transparent counting, and delivery process? I can't imagine. How difficult is it to rig an election? Well, you don't have to win popular vote. Mm-hmm. You got to win a certain area, and that by itself opens it up for for the possibility of corruption.
Certainly.
So why not just make people feel better? I don't think people were asking for anything crazy. Now I'll be the first person to tell you, because I am a student of human nature, and as I understand this country, it is full of more people who lean towards a liberal than a conservative agenda. And even if that wasn't true, if you want to find out, if you want to unify people, don't give them a common cause, give them a common enemy. And I'll be the first person to say I can absolutely believe that there was a massive turnout to vote for Joe Biden, not because of Joe Biden's charisma, but because of Trump's personality and people against him. Like that doesn't seem like out of the stretch, especially. It's not a stretch. Yeah, especially from the things I see on the ground, which is my connection. But why not make people feel better about it? Why not? There's so many. Let them see
a process that's transparent. Yeah.
Let there be that process may already exist. I don't want to cause I don't know this world that well. These are just things and snippets I picked up.
Yeah.
But there should be a way to produce an outcome beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's my point. Like one of the things I brought up, I deleted it because I don't want there to be any reason for me them to snip my account to be political.
Understood.
Right after the election, there were hacks on our gas line and our energy line. And I said, you want us to believe that our water and food and gas system is completely secure, or that our elections are completely secure from interference, but we just got hacked on our energy and food and water grid. That's a hard sell for me, man. You gotta, and all I'm doing is thinking. I'm not. You're
not proclaiming. You're just.
I'm not proclaiming. Right. I'm just thinking.
Right.
It's like
it should be encouraged.
It's like when people say, trust just trust the doctors. I can tell you. Look, let's forget about the Tuskegee experiment, right? Let's just forget about that one. I understand enough about cholesterol and kind of how saturated fats became the boogeyman demon, pretty much because they paid off. The American Heart Association was paid off by they were paid off by what are those people? The food
Archer Daniels Midland.
Yeah, and yeah, right, to say, have polyunsaturated fat so they could sell the oils.
The pyramids, they turned the pyramid upside down, right?
Yeah, and so once you know enough and you start thinking, you got to go, okay, I'm gonna ask questions.
It's kind of exhausting.
Asking questions now gets you get you asked.
You can't ask them publicly because
Yeah.
it's because it can be counterproductive to all that you worked for to create.
Yeah,
you have to make that selfish decision. It's a shame you can't have that free expression.
Well, because first of all, it's not like we were talking about optimization earlier. It's not that important to me, right?
Right.
Well, we're not talking about.
You're not writing a political book or something.
Not writing a political book.
Yeah.
We're not talking about
100%.
taking up arms to go and be on the line. That's a different thing.
Right.
So I'm not too worried about it. But at the same time, one of the things that I am aware of is I have a platform and influence.
Mm-hmm.
That comes with an inherent amount of responsibility.
Certainly.
And so I have to be careful about what I say. Not because I care about someone policing me, but because, do I want to be a net positive or a net negative? Do I want to make things better or worse? Do I want to unite or divide? These are things that I don't think people who have platforms think about a lot. I wrestle with them all the time because this is a gift. Like it feels like a gift from the gods.
Sure.
Like, here, we're gonna make sure that you can reach out and touch a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
and talk to them, and they're gonna care what you say and even give you money. And so, I don't want to abuse it. I don't want to abuse it, and I don't want.
It's also a good business decision.
Well, yeah. A good business decision would be, proclaiming myself, just super, mag or whatever, and growing my. I'd have like 400,000 followers
by picking a side.
Yeah, that would be a good business decision.
Okay.
What I'm doing is
integrity in that.
What I'm doing is not the most optimal, not the best for business, but it's optimal for kind of what my value system is. It's like, do I talk about this or talk about that? And if I have this thought process, do I put it out there? Because it's my opinion, and I recognize it's my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't treat my opinions as facts, and I think that's
gospel.
the difference between me and a lot of people on social media.
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt about it. I mean, the thing that I'll never understand, and I'll take this to my grave, I'm sure. But we are now, maybe we always were this way, Ed. I don't know, but we are definitely living in a world right now of absolutes, where call it groupthink or the quickness to join a team. We've talked about it, but where you can't be this because you're also this. You have to be one or the other.
Yeah, it's a hard world.
Yeah, I mean, but to me it's such a flawed way to. I mean, I couldn't imagine being a realtor and trying to make doing a decision making process as I maneuver throughout the day, and doing an all or nothing. Life is not all or nothing. It never will be all or nothing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a very immature way of looking at our system. To me, I don't know. You just don't seem to be a person ever to, especially you, from what I know of you, never to grow. You're such an independent person. I can't see you joining teams of any kind.
Nah, I just want to make sure I do the best I can on this planet. That's it. Sometimes, and one thing I understand is that the minute I align myself with the way a thought process or belief goes, then I can't do that, because then I become restricted on what I not even want to say, but what I can do and be cool with.
Yeah, so, and you also limit yourself for changing beliefs. If new facts would ever enter your life on anything, once you're in,
you're in, and now, and that's that makes you stupid. I don't want to be stupid,
buddy. I appreciate this, man. Thank you. I always very appreciate that you give me some time like this.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate you all asking me to come on.
Always. We'll do it again.
Awesome.
All right, friends. Ed Latimore.